Hi friends, I'm Scott Giles, and welcome to Power Talk, my podcast here on Facebook Live and YouTube. I cover topics related to spirituality, hypnotic coaching, and the hypnotic arts and sciences in general. If you want to know more about my professional work or sign up for my free e-newsletter Power Lines, check out my website, which I'll tag at the end of this video. Well, today I want to talk about your personal narrative. You have one. We all talk to ourselves all the time. We conduct a silent inner dialogue without even being aware of it most of the time. The purpose of this inner dialogue or narrative is to make the world make sense to us. Our personal narrative consists of all the things we believe about the world, all the assumptions we're making, whether they're good assumptions or bad ones. Someone cuts you off in traffic and your inner dialogue responds, well, people can be lousy. Or your inner dialogue might respond, as mine did recently, isn't it a shame there's so much mental illness in the world? You have good luck, and your deeper mind responds, I really deserve that. Or you have bad luck, and your inner mind responds, I'm such a loser. Well, years ago, the director of professional training at the University of Pennsylvania School of Professional Psychology, Dr. Martin Seligman, conducted an experiment on what he called explanatory style, or the characteristic way people explain the world to themselves. He took a group of freshmen in college and interviewed them to determine whether their characteristic explanatory style was optimistic or pessimistic. Both groups had similar basic good health. At the end of 4 years, he checked the number of times these people had had contact with campus infirmary services, and people with a negative or pessimistic explanatory style were sick much more often. He did another experiment with a kind of cancer called malignant melanoma. It's a kind of cancer where a person's immune system is very important in determining outcome. And it turned out that a person's explanatory style, being positive or pessimistic, was more predictive of outcome than any other measure, including biopsy. Well, the upshot of all of this is that it's good to be aware of what your personal narrative is, because then you can decide, do you need to change it, or is it good as it is? Is the story you tell yourself about the world an empowering one for you, or is it a disempowering one? For too many, it is a disempowering narrative. Parents, a teacher, some authority figure convinced you that you were dumb or funny looking or unpopular or what have you. And that became a proposition around which you began to organize your worldview. Pretty soon you were so convinced that it was absolutely true that you began to say it to yourself without even being aware of it, when in fact it was an artificial creation. If you are not intentional in regulating and controlling what you tell yourself, you become locked into what other people want you to think. And that's never a good idea. The second thing to keep in mind is that you can use your narrative strategically when dealing with other people, especially those who have an agenda for you that you don't share. Let me tell you a kind of a funny story. that illustrates my point. This comes from the work of Professor Bruce Lincoln, who's faculty at the Divinity School of the University of Chicago, a school I attended and loved. Well, we all know about the witch hysteria in Europe, where women were accused of witchcraft and arrested and, in many cases, hung or worse. Well, it turns out there was also a werewolf hysteria. People accused of being werewolves arrested and executed because being a werewolf was understood to be a bad thing. Well, they found this old guy who admitted that he was a werewolf, but said that being a werewolf was a good thing, because when the moon was full, the werewolves descended into hell to fight the devil, so the devil would allow spring to return to the world. And if the werewolves didn't do that, spring would never come, and everyone would starve. Well, the authorities didn't know what to do with this guy, because technically the crime was to deny being a werewolf if credibly accused, and this guy wasn't doing that. Well, they didn't believe his rationale. They couldn't prove that it was false unless they said they were werewolves themselves, and there was no way they were going to do that. So they finally just flogged him for a bit for heresy and sent him home. You see, they were living their lives in terms of a narrative. Christians good, werewolves bad. And the old man challenged their narrative with one of his own. Christians may be good, werewolves good. Checkmate. They had no way of dealing with this guy because his narrative was different from theirs. So think about how you might do that. If you're dealing with people who are immersed in a narrative where they think you're not important, how might you present a counter-narrative that changes the terms of the discussion? A romantic partner critiques your personality because you're not behaving the way your partner wants. Well, how can you respond by asserting your own worldview and self-image with its own integrity as a counter-narrative to the worldview of the other person? You may say it's terrible that my garage is messy, but I believe that this messiness actually improves my creativity, and I do wonderful things out here. Stand your ground and claim your path through the world by not getting defensive, but by proposing a strong counter-narrative to the worldview of others. Ponder that, because I suspect there is a way of power in there somewhere. Hey, thank you for your time and attention today. I'll be back next week with another talk on a different subject. You are invited to join me. It does help me if you let others know about my work and my videos, so please like, share, and subscribe. And if I can be of help to you, feel free to reach out through email, my website, or my Patreon channel, and have a great week.